Hello and thank you for joining me today. Today I'm showing you how I created this canvas featuring Prima's Apricot Honey Collection, a bunch of Finnabar's mixed media products, and a little bit of this and that. Anyhow, I'm going to jump right into this. It's a pretty long video, so I hope that you sit back and enjoy, and thank you again. So this is an 8x10 oval canvas that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to start by positioning a sheet of the collection onto the canvas. I'm just tracing, outlining, cutting, and ripping a piece of it off because I don't want the whole thing covered. I want more of a white space on this canvas. I'm just using a bit of soft matte gel to adhere the paper to the canvas, and then I'm going to continue to tear little bits and pieces for the look that I'm trying to achieve. Just kind of a shabby, tattered kind of look. I'm going to play with this until I'm happy with it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of clear gesso over the top of this paper. And that's just so the paper reacts the same way the canvas does to the mediums that I'm going to add. You're seeing here that I'm just trying to position the paper around the canvas, and I'm just distressing the edges a little bit to make sure everything fits well. And here I am with the gesso, like I said, to make sure everything responds the same way. I did make sure that everything was dry so I wouldn't have any air bubbles when I went ahead and applied my plaster paste. So I am using plaster paste through a stencil, and this is a very sturdy type of texture paste from Finnabar, and it's very easy to put through a stencil, and once it dries it is remarkable. I just love it. Anyhow, so just randomly placing the stencil around the canvas, no rhyme, no reason, not trying to be perfect with it, just trying to get a little extra texture in there. And here you can see that I'm adding a splash more texture with some white crackle paste. No rhyme or reason, just using a palette knife on the sides of the canvas, around the canvas, just a little bit here and there. And now I'm going to go ahead and start building my focal point. These pieces are resin pieces that I created using some Prima molds, and then of course the circle is a Prima frame. And you're just going to see me play with the configuration until I'm happy with it, and I'm going to make some changes here and there off camera, but you did not need to see how long this took for me to decide how I wanted this to go. I'm not going to adhere the circle frame at this time because I want that to be a different color, and you'll see that later. But I'm just playing with things until I'm happy with it. And you know, things change as you're working with the canvas or as you're working with the project. You think you want something, you have it in your mind, and then yeah, it doesn't work that way. But it all panned out in the end. Anyhow, while that was drying, I went ahead and picked my picture out and distressed some layers of the collection to frame the picture out a little bit more. The one little tip here that I would like to share is I always use packaging on the back of my photos when I can. It's cheap because you already paid for it, but it also gives the photos some support, so it's not so flimsy when you're working with it. And I'm just playing with my distresser and distressing some papers to go around the edge. Again, I'm just looking for that kind of shabby, worn kind of look for this canvas. The soft edges I'm not distressing. I am distressing the edges, but I'm not inking any of the edges. I'm just keeping it with that white tattered look. I hope that makes sense. I hate to sound a little bit rambly on this, and I know this is a long video, and I try to keep it short, but anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some color. I'm using Finnabar's Mint Impasto paint. This is an incredibly thick, vibrant paint. It's an acrylic paint. I'm just adding a bit of water to this to thin it out a little bit to make it a little bit easier to cover my embellishments. I'm not going to really paint the canvas at this time. I'm only going to focus on my embellishments. And really, a little bit of this paint honestly does go a long, long way. I could have probably painted several other things after I finished with this canvas. But I will have a link below of all the products that I've used during this process. So if there's anything that you're looking for, or if you're not sure on, it should be below. And if there's not, please feel free to leave me a comment or a question and I'll be happy to answer it. But here you can see that I'm just continuing to paint my embellishments here and there, making sure that I get in all the nooks and crannies. And now I'm adding a heavy amount of water, and that's because I'm trying to make the paint drip down the canvas. But again, I'm trying to make sure that the white portion of my canvas remains white, and that's why you'll see me dabbing off bits here and there with just a baby wipe. So I'm going to do this for a bit of time, and you'll see that I start to dry this. And you can still see the paper through it because I've watered the paint down so much. And you'll see that a little bit more once it's dry. And I'm just dabbing a little bit here and there with a baby wipe to make sure that things aren't too heavy. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in some bloom spray with a paintbrush. And I believe that that one is soft teal. Again, it'll be listed in the description. And I'm just doing this to kind of bring out the details of the embellishments. I didn't want them to be so lost with the acrylic flat base color. So just adding a coordinating color over top brings out those details just a tiny bit. And this is why I didn't adhere my frame. Now I'm going to paint this pink, and you can see I've added a little bit of crackle paste on there too for just a little bit of extra texture. I think I did that off camera. Now with this pink, it's really pink, and I don't want it to be 100% covered, so you're going to see me dab a little bit of this off with the baby wipe after I spray a little bit of water, and it just adds a little bit more texture to it. And I did go back and I added a little bit of opal magic paint to that as well to give it a little bit of a shine, and I did that off camera. Here you can see I'm just using some random stamps around the canvas. This is just a script stamp. It's one of Finnabar's tiny little stamps, and I'm using an archival ink for that. Now I'm adhering some art stones, and I'm going to use mega stones, our regular art stones, and the mini stones. I always start with my mega first when I'm going to use them, and that's why you can see I'm putting huge globs of gel, which is fine because it dries clear and there's so much still coming to this canvas that you're not really going to see gobs of glue anyhow. And that way I know that my stones are going to stay in place. But now you can see that I'm adding the stones. And then you'll see me go back and add a little bit more gel here and there and mix in the regular stones. And I do the tiny mini stones off camera just because you get the idea. And again, this video is already longer than I like them to be. I feel like I'm rambling, and I know that I didn't create any of these processes. It's just what I've picked up here and there, and I feel like I'm not really creating the wheel. And anyhow, so I don't like to bore you or take up too much of your time, and I want to kind of try and keep it as short as possible. But here you can see I'm just adding some splatters, and it was just a little bit of metallic white, and then I added some of the teal in it and just made some splatters, and I'm going to continue to do that. This is with Sparks paint now. And I'm just trying to keep all of the splatters on the one side of the canvas and keep everything that I can keep white on the one end. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some rose gold wax. You can see I'm using my hand kind of as a palette, and I'm just lightly going over the embellishments and all the texture that I created with the plaster paste originally. I'm not adding very much of the wax at all. I'm really trying to keep this very light so it doesn't take over the canvas. There's still a lot that I'm adding to this canvas, and I don't want the wax to overtake what I'm going for here. I did add a little bit of wax on the charm that dangles, but I did that off camera. Now it's time to add the flowers, and you're going to see me play with flowers a little bit, but I got really off camera, so I did cut this quite a bit, and plus again, I'm just messing with flowers, and I rip them off and start over and rip them off and start over so many times. No one needs to see that. And that's just kind of how it goes. But I finally do find a configuration that I'm happy with, and then I'm going to go ahead and start adding some more things. So here we are. Now these little butterflies are, there's a whole 12 by 12 sheet of butterflies in this collection, and I love them. And honestly, I like to fussy cut. It's a stress reliever for me. I have no idea why. But I cut all those butterflies out off camera, so you did not have to see that. But I'm just going to start adhering them to the canvas here and there randomly. And I'm just using a little bit of matte gel with that and a paintbrush. I could have used anything, but that's what I had in my hand. And I'm not doing anything to the edges of the butterflies, and they're not perfectly cut, and they're not die cut. They're just fussy cut out of the paper. They're beautiful. So you'll just see me tucking them in around the canvas until I'm happy with the way that they look. And I still have quite a few left, and I do have another project that I'm working on that you'll see them turn up in. And there's still more butterflies to come, I'm sure, because there's several sheets of these butterflies in the collection that I have. Now you can see that I'm adding some white splatters, and that's just a way that I tie everything together, and that's just my preference. And I did go right over top of my photograph, but I always layer a second photograph on whenever I'm using a lot of mixed media, because it's easier for me to work around a photo if it's there, and just to lay another one on top of it after everything's said and done. So you'll see that later. Now you can see that I'm adding some Sparks paint, and I'm just kind of creating drips with a paintbrush without actually making the drips with water. And I'm keeping that movement across the canvas. So from the big cluster of butterflies to the open white space. And you can see I'm just edging some of the butterflies with the paint, creating some more drips, going around the edges, trying to pick up anywhere that I have that white crackle paste and any extra texture that I want to make pop. Putting a little bit around the distressed papers, some on the flowers, and of course some splatters. Now I know this looks strange. You can see that I'm doing something strange here. I am attaching a piece of wire to the tiny eyelet that's on the tip of the wing. And I did attach another eyelet at the bottom of the canvas, and that's where I'm going to put the artifact. I think it's a chandelier pendant. But I'm just attaching a bit of wire, and I'm stringing some pearls on it, and you'll see me twist the wire here and there, and I'm just tucking it in as I go, and it's just another thing that I've added to the canvas. Unfortunately, I had a lot of problems when I was creating this canvas, and I lost one of my lights, and my video stopped in the middle, and I didn't realize that it did, so you didn't see me add all of my micro beads and my glitter. But hopefully you can pick up what I did off camera in this little preview here. You can see I attached the chandelier pendant, and there's some of the glitter that I added. And then you'll see just a little bit of glitter and micro beads tucked in over top the paints and the flowers. Just a little bit to give it a little extra shine here and there. You can see I added some big pearls. And I'm sorry that was off camera. I didn't realize that my camera went dead. We lost power, and I lost a light, and my camera went wonky. So I'm sorry for that. But I do hope that you enjoyed this process, and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you'll consider giving me a thumbs up or becoming a subscriber. And I hope to have more to share with you again soon. Thanks so much for joining me today, and you have a great day.